Yeah, let's talk about Julio. He returned on Sunday. We mentioned it on a little bit on the live stream, tiny bit on Wednesday's podcast, but we're going to break it down more here now because unfortunately in Wednesday's game, he re-aggravated that ankle. He did not play Thursday. They are calling him day-to-day, but the story here is he re-aggravated it.
So how do we want to go with this? There's a lot of different ways to approach this. There is the how do you handle him when he does play, or did he come back too soon? I kind of want to start on the latter of did he come back too soon? Because I think that's the major argument amongst people here. I was initially among the people who I trusted the Mariners when they said he's okay to come back. I was like, all right, well, they've kept all these pitchers healthy. The Mariners, for the most part, in these last 3 years have been pretty healthy. So I feel like they have a general idea of the health of their players and they know what's right for them. So I said, okay, if they think Julio Rodriguez decides to come back on Sunday Night Baseball and he's good enough to come back then I will trust their decision. Even though when you see high ankle sprain and the fact he had only been out, I think it was exactly 3 weeks at that point, you kind of raise an eyebrow. Like, well, high ankle sprains don't just go away. These are injuries at minimum that last 6 to 8 weeks. That's in a best case scenario. But as I was trying to do my doctor research online yesterday, Lyle, and trying to see, the different stages of a high ankle sprain, they specifically note, hey, athletes, this is going to take significantly longer for you to heal from a high ankle sprain because you're constantly putting pressure on it, cutting, changing directions, etc. So he comes back, and it only takes 3 games for him to tweak it again. Like, seriously tweak it to the fact he has to come out of the game. Which led to a lot of people saying, including myself, I said this, there's tweets on my timeline, you can go look at it, where I said, well, that's done. I don't want Julio back until he can play center field. Well, that's not the case, really. Because I've I think from all the information I've gathered on this subject, is that his ankle injury will not go away before the end of the season, period. It will not. Whether or not he sits out every game or if he plays every game, the ankle will continue to hurt and be unable to be 100% during this season. So that leads me to this point, Lyle, where I think this is really just going to have to be something we're going to have to get used to down the stretch with Julio. It is probably going to have to be 2 games on, 1 game off. 2 games on, 1 game off, because he's going to do something to aggravate it, and it's just not going to heal while he's sitting there in the dugout, just waiting.
So I think you're right. I think your latter opinion's right about they're just going to have to let him play through this. And you and Joe Doyle were talking about it on Twitter yesterday for a bit, and Joe's obviously a friend of ours, and TJ and Joe had different opinions, which is totally fine. And I think what we've gathered now from what Joe said and from what other people said is this. He's just going to have to play through it this year. It is not going to fully heal by the time the season ends. So, okay, we're all going to have to accept that at this point. Here's the problem. Let me preface again by saying I understand this is what they're going to have to do. But where Julio Rodriguez has essentially provided all of his value this year is in the field. The guy's barely been a league average hitter. Right now, if you look on Baseball Reference, his OPS plus is 100, exactly. His WRC plus might actually be a little bit different. It might still be under 100. He has barely been a league average bat all year. Where his values come from is playing elite defense and his speed on the base paths. Now he's not going to have that. Now he's just going to DH, and you are hoping for a guy who has been a league average hitter and a slightly above league average hitter for the last year and a half to all of a sudden explode in the final 6 weeks of the season with a high ankle sprain that is not close to 100% that he's trying to play through.
And where he has showed zero consistency all season of staying hot. The only hot stretch was before he got injured for 9 games. Yeah. Really, that's it.
That's it.
So, and so the point Joe brought up to me on Twitter is like, would you rather have more Mitch Garver or Leo Rivas for 40 games? Meaning they play more because Julio can't physically suit up and play in that roster spot. And my answer to that question is no. I would still probably rather have Julio based on the upside of what he could do, the idea of what Julio Rodriguez can do at the plate, the 2022 version of him, and I just miss so damn much that we have not seen since 2022, since before this podcast existed. Literally, that's how long it's been. Mm-hmm. I miss that so much. The idea is stuck in my brain. But it just doesn't, even if I say yes to that, that still doesn't mean, like, man, that I'm rearing and over the moon for Julio to get all these DH at bats. He just hasn't been good enough this year. And it's frustrating for me to sit there and think of the line of thought you just brought up, and when it comes to his value, and be like, well, yeah, if he's going to break out, it's sure going to be when all he can do is sit there and think about hitting in the dugout, which isn't made for everybody. That's why people have said DHing's pretty hard, because you have nothing to distract yourself. Oh, while my ankle is literally flaring up, and every time I push off on my swing and my back ankle, my leg is just going to jolt on fire. Like, it's going to be just a jabbing pain in my ankle every single time I do that. That's when I'm gonna jump out and I'm gonna hit. Unfortunately for the Mariners, they have no other options.
No. And you're essentially saying you need your DH spot to be a league average hitter at this point, which is what Julio's been, aside from Mitch Garver, who just hasn't been that this year. He's had a very tough year. That's what you're saying. Like, we value him enough for him to be league average at the plate on a bad ankle with the hope that maybe he can find some way to break out. Now, I'll ask this. I think we now are all in understanding that no matter what, if Julio were to come back this year, the ankle was never going to be 100%, and the Mariners accepted that. Could he still have used a little bit more time to recover? I'm talking another few days, another week, whatever. That I still wonder, because, look, in that Tigers series, when he tried to beat out that infield single, he was basically hobbling on it. He didn't look comfortable running down the first base line.
Still fast, but not prime Julio. Like he was ginger on it, and then he was gingerly walking back to first base at the end of that play. Then he re-injures it later in the game, again, 3 days after he had just come back, along with the fact that he never looked that comfortable running the bases when he was testing it out before he was activated off the IL. We were out there that week, or at least I was. Divish recorded some videos of it and said the same thing. Like, he never looked that comfortable running. Even if he was never going to be 100%, could he have used a little bit more time, to the fact where even if you're not going to be at full strength, you'd at least not re-aggravate it this quickly? Like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I do wonder. I think from everything I've seen, that wouldn't have made much of a difference. It's going to get aggravated no matter what. It would have been aggravated if he sat out another month.
Maybe that's true. And maybe that's where we're at. But that kind of leads to the second point of this conversation, is understanding where Julio's at and understanding who you have in terms of a player with the injury that he's going to endure the rest of the way. But also saying, at least me personally, I don't love how this whole thing's been handled, both by him or by the Mariners. Now, maybe it's the case, right? Maybe this is what you've got. And they said he's ready to go with the conditions that he'll be under, because it's not going to get much better. But, like, I don't know. So here's what's sticking out to me. And you can push back on this if you want to. But it was the fact that if that's the case, if he was ready to go on that Sunday for Sunday Night Baseball, there were reports out on Friday that Julio was saying, like, I'm good. My ankle's good. My goal is to be ready for Sunday. Well, why is it, if you're feeling good, why aren't you coming back Saturday? Like, why is it, if you're feeling good Friday, why are you waiting another day to come back? That just felt a little weird.
Mm-hmm. And what does he mean by good? Good is a very subjective term, apparently.
Yeah. But, like, that's the thing. It was either, so my thing was either give it a few more days or let it rest a little more. But if that wasn't going to do anything for him, then again, why didn't he come back on Saturday? Now, it didn't matter. The Mariners swept that series against the Mets. They won anyway. It was just, I might be reading too much into this, but like almost like he was trying to make some grand appearance, like a grand return on the national stage. I don't know. Again, like, maybe I'm totally wrong about that, but that's a little bit what it felt like. If you're saying I'm good on Friday, but then you take another day.
And on top of that, so if you take Sunday Night Baseball away from the Mariners, when does he come back?
That's what I mean. I don't know. What was he pushing himself so hard to get back so he could play on Sunday Night Baseball, which, by the way, he went 0 for 5 with 5 strikeouts in that game.
Mm-hmm. Is it the Tiger series? If it was just the Tiger series, then it's probably just a nothing burger. It's an extra couple days of rest. It really is. It might just be a timing thing. But what if he sat out another week or waited until the Mariners got back from this road trip to play again against the Dodgers? That's a week and a half. And even if that didn't make that much of a difference, maybe it would have gotten Julio more used to how he's feeling with his ankle. Because, as I stated, and I'll state again, no matter how much he's resting, it is going to bug him the rest of the season. He's not going to be able to cut as well as he'd like. He's not going to be pain-free. It's going to be a struggle. He's going to be in pain every single time he's in the box when he's running around the bases. So ultimately, that week and a half might not have made that much of a difference. Did it just take 3 weeks for Julio to realize this is how it's going to be, and the Mariners realize that's how it's going to be? I remember when he was injured, he was diagnosed with a high ankle sprain, but the impression I got is that it really wasn't that serious and that he would be healthy at some point. And maybe that's just bad messaging or bad receiving on my part. Could be, certainly. No injury expert. So I think perhaps it was just a bad impression of what the injury actually was and how serious it was and how long it's going to affect Julio Rodriguez for. Because it very well could be that just everyone is learning right now how long high ankle sprains last for. Because really, Mariners haven't had to deal with a whole lot of them, at least not to players of this importance.
They did say originally he was going to be day-to-day, and then it turned into an IL stint. Sometimes that happens. Again, Kyle Tucker, our guy on this podcast, future Mariner, of course, he was listed as day-to-day back in, mid-June with a shin contusion? That's what they said, a shin contusion, a.k.a. a bruised shin. Kyle Tucker hasn't played in 2 months. So he went from what we thought was going to be day-to-day to he's out a while. Mm-hmm. Julio went from day-to-day to, he went to the IL, felt like he was going to be out a while, and then he got back probably quicker than most people thought he would get back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
This is going to be something they just deal with. Julio's going to have to deal with it. He's going to have to find a way to be productive offensively. He just can't get in the DH spot and stink.
No.
Because then he is essentially just replicating what you get from Mitch Garver, which can't be for Julio because he's worth way too much to do that.
Yeah. And then, look, there's one more topic I want for us to bring up here. And maybe I'm just irritated by everything this week. I don't know. Maybe I'm off on this again. Everybody's going to have a different opinion. But I remember, TJ, you asked me back in April. It was that game where Julio came in to pinch run against the Cubs. He got off to a really bad stretch to start the year. And he got picked off to end the game. After the game, he declined to talk. And you said, you know what? I didn't like that. And I said, well, why? And you said, you're the face of the team. You're the star of the team. You make the big money. You're supposed to speak to the media and answer questions after a game. And I said, okay, you can feel that way, but it was one time. Maybe there wasn't that much to talk about since he only played for 60 seconds in that game, and you just move on. Now this has happened a few times this year where he's done that, as recently as now in this Tiger series. Daniel Kramer tweeted out again on Wednesday night that after Julio aggravated the ankle, he basically said in passing, meaning he didn't stop, he just kind of said, yeah, I'm good. And Kramer tweeted, but he preferred not to speak further. That's happened 5 times this year now or something like that. Maybe 5's too much. It's happened close to a handful of times this year where he just decides, no, I'm not going to talk about it. And I understand, again, we're going to keep reiterating this. Maybe this ankle is the best it's going to be all year. But if that's the case, does he refuse to talk every time he re-aggravates it the rest of the season? He just refuses to talk? He doesn't think he has to? George Kirby, the example I was going to use on this, we know, he does not like doing media. It's just not his thing. He doesn't prefer to be in the limelight. He got shelled on Tuesday. Not a good outing. He sat there and answered questions. You know he didn't want to be there answering them, but he sat there and answered them. Julio's done this a few times this year now, where he's you know what? I don't need to talk to the media today. I'm just going to say no. You don't really see anybody else on the team doing that. So maybe I'm just irritated by everything this week, but it's happened enough times now this year where I've started to take notice. In April, I said, TJ, I don't think it's that big a deal. Now I'm I don't know. This is getting a little old.
Well, there's a lot of ways to say peel back the onion on this. Ultimately, he is still 23 years old, so there's still plenty for Julio to learn about in Major League Baseball and handling himself and such, and that's why I'm sure he thinks at least he's surrounded himself with very good people, good advisors, friends, teammates, etc., that will give him advice on what the right decision to do is. And ultimately, this could just be a big nothing burger, but still, you are the face and franchise of the team. The contract says so. Whether you want to be or not, the contract says so. So when that happens, you're the one up there talking. You're supposed to. So,
right. So,
it stinks. Might not want to do it, but it is your job. It's like the job of an NFL quarterback. I think Aaron Rodgers likes... Actually, sorry, that's a lie. He does like it. He likes the attention a lot. Pick a quarterback who hates talking to me. What's a quarterback who hates talking to the media?
I guess the one that always jumps out to me was Cam Newton after the Super Bowl, who did not give a good interview when they lost that Super Bowl, by the way, but he was present. He was there. I'm trying to think of another. Who else?
That, really disheartened. Well, maybe all quarterbacks have ego, though, so they probably all like it. But and a star player just hates talking to the media.
Well, Marshawn?
Yeah, exactly. Boom. Like a team leader. Hates talking to me. Just despises it. He still did it when he had to.
Yeah.
He wouldn't give great answers.
Yeah, barely. But he did. I know, and maybe Marshawn's not a good example either. I'm trying to think of, an NFL quarterback who really hates it, or there's a lot of guys in the NBA who don't like it, but they just have to do it. Quarterbacks, It's their job. Okay, you know what? We don't even have to pick a specific quarterback name. When a guy gets blown out, or a team gets blown out, quarterback has a really bad game, they still have to go up there and talk. None of them want to be doing it, but they do. And here's the thing. If Julio on Wednesday had not talked to the media, and the reason was he wanted to get more clarity about where his ankle was at and was going to answer questions the next day, I'd understand that. Andres Munoz, who we've talked about, one of the just greatest human beings ever. We could not say enough good things about him. I remember when he injured his back in Oakland, he said to the media after the game, you know what, today, I'd rather just not answer questions. And he said, the reason is I don't want to give false speculation on where my back might be at until the MRI comes back tomorrow. Tomorrow, when it's all back, when I have the reports, I will definitely talk. He did that. Well, we're sitting here on Thursday. I haven't seen any quotes out from Julio today where he sat around and talked to the media and gave some update. No, it seems like he kind of just blew him off, and he's done it a few times. Again, maybe I'm just irritated by everything this week, and I'm an old man yelling at a cloud. Insert that meme. But it's happened a few times this year now. And, paired with the fact you're not exactly hitting like Aaron Judge right now or playing like Aaron Judge, but you're not talking. Doesn't seem right.
And again, maybe it's the youth of underperforming, frustrated with injury, and don't want to give yourself the risk of saying something you'll regret.
Maybe.
That's realistic.
Yeah.
That could be it. Right? And as you grow into your major league career, you learn to compartmentalize and turn into Russell Wilson. Just be a robot.
Just be total. What? Just be totally fake? I don't want Julio to be totally fake.
Doesn't need to be fake, but he can stand up there and give a cliche scrum question.
That's true.
Like that. That's something the great ones master.
Yeah.
So hopefully he gets to that. Hopefully this is just speculation on this case, because otherwise you do want him sitting up there and taking responsibility for things, because the franchise is his. We gave him the franchise when Russ got traded. We gave him the city, in fact. I don't know if we've taken it back yet. I don't think so. It's still his. He still has the keys to it. And when that is the case, that is your responsibility. The champion of the city. So we just want that, and people want that, and people want quotes, answers, good play, etc.
We trashed on Russell Wilson all the time, especially toward the end. And even now, we have a whole podcast segment named after him. He was corny. He was fake. But I will give him this. He always stood up there and answered questions. He might have gave some very, very media-trained robot-like answers, but he stood up there and answered questions. Anyway, that's
Threw a pick on the 1-yard line and stood at the podium right after.
Yeah, he did. So, again, maybe we're making something out of nothing here, and that's entirely possible. I've just noticed now that it has happened more than once this year. It's happened a few times, and it's gotten to the point where, yeah, I've kind of taken notice of it. So I just wanted to bring it up. You guys can let us know what you think about it in the comments. Maybe we're totally off on this. Maybe you guys agree. You can let us know. It's totally fine if you feel either way.